If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel. Sharing it with your friends and family helps spread knowledge, and when we help others grow, we grow too. Thank you so much for listening. Let's dive into the podcast. Chapter 1, The Foundation of Hindu Morality. Part 1, The Birth of Dharma, Vedic Beginnings. In the earliest times, when the sages spoke the sacred words, they understood that the world needed order. This order was not made by humans, but came from the divine source itself. They called this order Dharma, the great law that holds everything together. The ancient seers saw that without Dharma, the sun would not rise, the rains would not come, and people would not know how to live with peace. They understood that Dharma was both the law of the cosmos and the law of human conduct. It was one truth with two faces. In those early days, the wise ones taught that every person has duties given by their birth, their station in life, and their abilities. A king must rule with justice. A priest must perform rituals with purity. A farmer must grow food with care. Each person's dharma was different, but all dharma served the same purpose: to keep the world in balance. The sacred fires were lit, and offerings were made not just to please the gods, but to maintain the harmony between earth and heaven. Every ritual, every prayer, every act of sacrifice was a way of following Dharma. When people followed their Dharma properly, the whole universe stayed in its proper place. The ancient teachers said that Dharma was like a great wheel. When everyone did their part, the wheel turned smoothly. But when people forgot their duties or acted selfishly, the wheel would wobble and suffering would come to all. They taught that Dharma was not just about following rules. It was about understanding that every action has consequences. Good actions create good results. Bad actions create suffering. This law worked the same way for everyone, rich or poor, high or low. The early texts made clear that Dharma connected the spiritual world with everyday life. A person could not be holy while ignoring their duties to family and society. A person could not be good in society while forgetting their spiritual nature. The two paths were really one path. The wise ones established that Dharma changes its form, but never its essence. What a person must do depends on their time, place, and circumstances. But the basic principle remains the same: act in ways that support life, truth, and harmony. This was the foundation laid in the beginning, the root from which all moral teaching would grow. From these ancient beginnings came the understanding that righteous living was not a burden, but the natural way of existence, the path that leads to both worldly success and spiritual fulfillment. Part 2, The Truth of Atman, Universal Self. HTML text. In the deepest teachings of the ancient seers, there exists a truth that stands above all others, the truth of Atman, the eternal self that dwells within every living being. This self is not the body that ages, not the mind that changes, not the personality that shifts with time. It is the unchanging spirit, the divine spark that makes you who you truly are. The wise ones declared that this Atman is the same in all creatures. The self in you is the same self in me. The divine essence in a king is the same divine essence in a servant. The eternal spirit in a human is the same eternal spirit in an animal, in a tree, in all of creation. This is not poetry or philosophy. This is the fundamental truth of existence. When you truly know this truth, everything changes. How can you harm another when you see yourself in them? How can you lie to someone who carries the same divine light you carry? How can you take what belongs to another when you understand that separation is just an appearance, not reality? This knowing brings forth compassion naturally, like water flowing from a spring. You'll feel the pain of others because you recognize they are not truly separate from you. You feel joy in their happiness because their joy is your joy. The suffering of any creature becomes your concern because their suffering touches the same self that exists in you. From this understanding comes the highest form of morality. You do good not because you fear punishment or seek reward. You do good because you see clearly. You help others because helping them is helping yourself. You protect life because all life is sacred, being made of the same eternal substance. The ancient texts teach that those who realize this truth naturally act with universal love. They serve all beings without asking for anything in return. They speak truth because they see that lies separate what is naturally one. They practice nonviolence because violence against any creature is violence against their own true nature. This is why the scriptures say that knowledge of Atman is the foundation of all ethical living. When you truly know who you are, moral behavior becomes as natural as breathing. You do not need thousands of rules and regulations. You do not need threats of punishment or promises of heaven. The right action flows from right understanding. This truth of the universal self connects all moral teachings in the sacred texts. Whether speaking of duty to family, service to society, or devotion to the divine, all paths lead back to this one truth. You and all beings share the same eternal essence, and recognizing this transforms how you live. HTML. End of text. Part 3. Emergence of core ethical principles. In the heart of truth lies the first great principle, ahimsa, which means not causing harm to any living being. This is not merely avoiding violence with hands or weapons. True ahimsa means holding no hatred in the heart, speaking no harsh words, and thinking no cruel thoughts. When you see the same divine self in every creature, how can you bring pain to what is essentially your own self? The wise person walks carefully, speaks gently, and lives with kindness toward all forms of life. The second pillar stands as satya, truthfulness in thought, word, and action. Truth is not simply speaking facts. It means living in harmony with the divine order that governs all existence. When your thoughts align with truth, your words carry power. When your actions flow from truth, they create good results. The truthful person becomes a channel for divine will, and their life becomes a blessing to others. Truth protects those who protect truth. From these foundations grows Daya, compassion that flows naturally when you recognize the universal self in every being. This is not mere sympathy or pity, but the deep understanding that another's pain is your own pain. Another's joy is your own joy. The compassionate heart sees no stranger, no enemy, only different forms of the one eternal spirit. Through compassion, you serve the divine presence in all creation. The fourth principle is shaucha, purity of body, mind, and spirit. External cleanliness reflects inner cleanliness. When the body is pure, it becomes a fit temple for the divine self. When the mind is pure, it can perceive truth clearly. When the heart is pure, it naturally loves what is good and turns away from what is harmful. Purity is not about following countless rules, but about maintaining the natural state of the soul. These four principles work together like the four legs of a table. Remove any one, and spiritual life becomes unstable. They appear in all the sacred texts because they express the natural way of the enlightened soul. Whether you study the earliest hymns or the latest teachings, these same virtues shine forth as guides for those who seek to live in harmony with divine law. When you practice these principles, you do not do so to earn heaven or avoid hell. You practice them because they express your true nature. Just as water naturally flows downward and fire naturally burns upward, the awakened soul naturally acts with nonviolence, truthfulness, compassion, and purity. This is the moral foundation that supports all spiritual growth and creates peace in society. Part 4. The unity of all beings. From the sacred teachings, we learn that the entire universe is one great being. Every creature, every plant, every stone, and every star is part of this one divine existence. The wise sages who composed the holy Upanishads declared this truth with clear words. All this is Brahman. This means that the same divine essence that lives within you also lives within every other being. When you see a bird flying in the sky, know that the same spirit that moves within your heart also moves within that bird. When you look upon a tree swaying in the wind, understand that the same consciousness that thinks through your mind also flows through that tree. This is not merely a teaching to remember. This is the actual truth of existence. The ancient seers taught that this oneness is not something you must create. It already exists. Your task is simply to recognize what is already present. When you truly see this unity, your behavior toward all beings changes naturally. You cannot harm another creature without harming yourself. You cannot show love to another being without showing love to yourself. This understanding creates what the scriptures call universal love. When you know that the beggar on the street carries the same divine essence as you do, how can you turn away from his suffering? When you recognize that the animals in the forest are expressions of the same cosmic spirit that you are, how can you cause them pain? When you realize that your enemy is another form of your own self, how can you continue to hate? The Vedantic teachings explain that all apparent differences between beings are like waves on the ocean. Each wave appears separate, but all waves are made of the same water. Similarly, all beings appear different in form and name, but all are expressions of the same divine reality. This wisdom guides your moral choices. When you speak truthfully, you honor the divine truth present in all beings. When you practice nonviolence, you recognize the sacred life that flows through every creature. When you show compassion, you express the natural love that connects all existence. The sages taught that ethical conduct is not a burden imposed from outside. It is the natural expression of one who has seen the unity of all life. Just as the sun naturally gives light and warmth, the person who recognizes cosmic oneness naturally acts with love and respect toward all beings. This is why the scriptures say that the highest knowledge leads to the highest morality. When you know your true nature as one with all existence, virtue flows from you like fragrance from a flower. You do not need rules to force you to be good. Goodness becomes your natural way of being in this world of divine unity. Chapter 2. The Expanding Web of Dharma. Part 1. Individual Duties and Social Roles. Arjuna spoke with sorrow. O Krishna, I see my own family members standing before me in battle. My teachers, my fathers, my sons, my grandfathers, my uncles, my cousins, and my friends are all here ready to fight. How can I kill these people? Even if they want to kill me, I do not wish to kill them. What good will come from killing my own family? I do not want victory or kingdom or pleasures if it means destroying my loved ones. Krishna replied, You speak wise words, but you grieve for those who should not be grieved for. The wise do not mourn for the living or the dead. The soul never dies, Arjuna. Just as a person puts on new clothes after taking off old ones, the soul takes new bodies after leaving old ones. Weapons cannot cut the soul, fire cannot burn it, water cannot make it wet, and wind cannot dry it. The soul is eternal and cannot be destroyed. You are a warrior, Arjuna. Your duty as a warrior is to fight when righteousness is threatened. There is nothing better for a warrior than a righteous war. Warriors who die in such battles go directly to heaven. If you do not fight this righteous battle, you will abandon your duty and lose your honor. People will speak of your shame forever. But you must fight without attachment to the results. Do your duty because it is right, not because you want something from it. Work without caring about success or failure. This is the path of wisdom. When you act without selfish desires, you are free from sin. Each person has different duties based on who they are and what role they play in life. A teacher's duty is different from a warrior's duty. A ruler's duty is different from a servant's duty. Young people have different duties than old people. What is right for one person may not be right for another person. A person should follow their own duty, even if they do it imperfectly, rather than try to follow someone else's duty perfectly. It is better to do your own work badly than to do another person's work well. When you follow your own path of duty, you cannot be blamed. The 4 classes of people each have their own duties. The priests should teach and perform ceremonies. The rulers should protect the people and maintain order. The merchants should trade and take care of business. The workers should serve others. Each person should do their work according to their nature and abilities. Even I, who need nothing, continue to work. If I stopped working, all people would follow my example and the world would be destroyed. So I work to maintain the order of the world. You too must work, but work without selfish attachment. This is how you serve both your own duty and the good of all people. Part 2. The Laws of Manu, Shaping Moral Codes. Manu, the great lawgiver, spoke these words to guide all people in the ways of righteousness. Listen carefully to the eternal laws that maintain order in the world. These rules come from the divine source and must be followed by all who wish to live in harmony. Each person has duties according to their birth and station in life. These duties are not the same for everyone, but each must be performed with devotion. The learned ones who teach the sacred knowledge must live in purity. They should study the holy books, teach others, perform ceremonies, give gifts, and accept offerings given with respect. They must speak truth, control their anger, and remain free from greed. Their food should be simple and their hearts clean. The rulers who protect the land have different duties. They must guard the people from harm, punish those who break the law, collect taxes fairly, and ensure justice for all. A king should wake early, listen to his advisors, and make decisions that benefit his subjects. He should be like a father to his people, caring for their welfare above his own comfort. Those who engage in trade and farming should work honestly. They must care for cattle, cultivate the land, lend money fairly, and conduct business without cheating. Their duty is to create wealth through righteous means and share it according to the law. The servants should faithfully help others and find contentment in their service. Though their work may seem humble, it is necessary for the world to function properly. Women should be honored and protected by their families. A daughter should obey her father. A wife should respect her husband, and a widow should be cared for by her sons. When women are happy and safe, the gods are pleased and bless the household. The student should live with his teacher, learn with dedication, and follow the rules of conduct. The householder should earn wealth rightfully, support his family, and help those in need. The forest dweller should leave worldly concerns and focus on spiritual practice. The wandering monk should own nothing and seek only liberation. These laws apply to all stages of life. In childhood, learn. In youth, earn and serve. In middle age, teach and guide. In old age, withdraw from worldly matters and prepare for the next life. Punishment maintains order when followed correctly. Without proper justice, the strong would oppress the weak and chaos would destroy society. Therefore, these laws must be upheld by all people in their proper roles. Those who follow these divine ordinances will find peace in this world and happiness in the next. Those who ignore them will face suffering and confusion. This is the eternal way that wise ones have followed since the beginning of time. Part 3. Epics and Dharma in Action, Mahabharata and Ramayana. The great stories of the Mahabharata and Ramayana show us Dharma working in the real world through the lives of heroes who must make difficult choices. These tales reveal how following the right path becomes complex when duty pulls in different directions. In the Mahabharata, Prince Arjuna stands on the battlefield facing his own family members, teachers, and friends in the opposing army. His duty as a warrior tells him to fight, but his love for his relatives makes him want to put down his weapons. Krishna teaches him that his dharma as a warrior must come before his personal feelings. The battle represents the eternal struggle between what our hearts want and what our duty demands. Yudhishthira, the eldest of the Pandava brothers, shows us another face of Dharma. Known for always speaking truth, he faces moments where telling the truth might cause greater harm than staying silent. When asked about the death of Ashwatthama in battle, he speaks in a way that is technically true but misleading. This shows that even the most righteous person must sometimes bend the rigid rules to serve a higher purpose. The story of Karna presents Dharma's most painful test. Born to a low caste, but possessing the heart of a warrior, he faces rejection from those who judge him by birth rather than character. His loyalty to Duryodhana, though misplaced, demonstrates how Dharma can appear different from various viewpoints. What seems like wrong friendship to some represents unwavering loyalty to others. In the Ramayana, Rama faces the terrible choice between his duty as a husband and his duty as a king. When people question Sita's purity after her captivity, Rama must choose between personal happiness and public responsibility. His decision to send Sita away shows how Dharma sometimes demands painful sacrifice from those who would serve the greater good. Sita herself embodies Dharma through her unwavering devotion and strength. Her choice to enter the earth rather than live with continued doubt about her character shows that Dharma sometimes calls for the ultimate sacrifice to maintain truth and honor. These epic characters teach us that Dharma is not a simple list of rules, but a living principle that must be applied with wisdom and courage. The right action in one situation may be wrong in another. Context, intention, and consequence all matter when determining the truly righteous path. The epics show that even the greatest heroes struggle with moral choices. Their stories comfort us by revealing that doubt and difficulty in choosing the right path are part of human nature. What matters is the sincere effort to act according to Dharma, even when the way forward is unclear. Part 4. The conflict of individual and collective Dharma. When a person's heart tells them to do one thing, but society demands another, the deepest moral struggles begin. This conflict between what we feel is right and what others expect from us creates the greatest tests of character and wisdom. Arjuna stood on the battlefield facing his own family members who had chosen the wrong side. His duty as a warrior demanded that he fight. His role in society required him to protect righteousness and support his brothers. But his personal feelings made him want to throw down his weapons and walk away. How could he kill his teachers, his cousins, and his grandfather? Even if they were wrong, they were still his beloved family. This moment shows us the hardest part of Dharma. Sometimes our personal conscience conflicts with our social duties. Sometimes what feels right in our heart goes against what our position in life requires. Arjuna's crisis teaches us that even the best people face times when they cannot see the right path clearly. Krishna's response offers a solution that goes beyond both personal feelings and social pressure. He tells Arjuna to look higher than his own emotions and higher than what people expect. There is a universal order that stands above both personal wishes and social demands. When we connect our actions to this higher truth, we can act without being trapped by either our feelings or other people's opinions. Krishna explains that the real problem comes from attachment. When we are too attached to the results of our actions, we suffer. When we are too attached to what people think of us, we become confused. When we are too attached to our own comfort, we cannot do what needs to be done. The solution is to do our duty while offering the results to the divine order that governs all things. This teaching shows us that sometimes universal principles must guide us when personal and social dharma conflict. The highest dharma asks us to act according to eternal truth, rather than temporary circumstances. This does not mean we ignore our roles in society or our personal conscience. Instead, we use a higher standard to judge when our social duties are truly righteous and when our personal feelings point toward truth. But battle between individual choice and group expectations continues in every generation. People still face moments when their conscience tells them one thing while their community expects another. The wisdom from Arjuna's struggle reminds us that these conflicts are not signs of weakness, but opportunities to discover deeper truth. By looking beyond both personal preference and social pressure toward universal principles, we can find actions that honor both our authentic self and our responsibilities to others. Part 5. Karma and Cosmic Justice. The law of karma stands as the great balance wheel of all existence. Every action creates a result. Every thought leaves its mark. Every choice builds the future. This cosmic law operates beyond human judgment and social rules. Krishna teaches Arjuna about this eternal principle. He says that no action goes without consequence. Good deeds bring good results. Bad deeds bring suffering. This happens not because any god decides punishment or reward, but because the universe itself maintains perfect balance. The sacred text explains that karma works across many lifetimes. What we do today shapes tomorrow. What we experience now comes from past actions. Death does not end this cycle. The soul carries the effects of all deeds from one life to the next. This creates true moral responsibility. When people understand that every harmful act will return to them, they choose kindness. When they know that every generous deed will bring blessing, they act with compassion. The law makes each person responsible for their own destiny. Karma operates like a cosmic scale. It weighs every intention and every action. The measure used is perfect justice. No one escapes this law. Kings and servants, rich and poor, all live under the same universal principle. Social position cannot protect anyone from the results of their choices. The Mahabharata shows this truth through many stories. Characters who lie face the consequences of dishonesty. Those who show mercy receive mercy. Warriors who fight with honor gain lasting respect. Those who betray others find themselves betrayed. This law supports moral behavior in society. People cannot hide their true actions from the cosmic order. They may fool other people, but they cannot fool the universe. Every secret deed, every hidden thought, every private choice matters in the final accounting. Karma also brings hope to those who suffer injustice. When the powerful harm the weak, cosmic law ensures that balance will return. The oppressed need not seek revenge. The universe itself will restore justice through the natural working of cause and effect. The doctrine teaches that moral order exists beyond human laws and social customs. While different communities may have different rules, the law of karma applies to all people equally. It creates a universal standard that transcends cultural differences and personal opinions. This cosmic principle makes every individual both judge and judged. Each person creates their own future through present choices. Each soul bears responsibility for its own spiritual development. The law of karma thus makes morality both deeply personal and universally binding. Chapter 3: Reform, Adaptation, and Modern Tensions. Part 1: Bhakti Movements. Universal love as moral imperative. Listen to the sacred words that speak of love and devotion to the divine. When the heart turns toward God with pure love, all barriers fall away. The learned and unlearned, the highborn and lowborn, all become equal in the eyes of the Supreme. The path of devotion knows no caste or creed. Whether you are born in a palace or a hut, whether you wear silk or rough cloth, your love for God matters more than your station in life. The divine accepts the offerings of all who come with sincere hearts. Those who sing the holy names with devotion find the same divine presence as those who perform elaborate rituals. The simple farmer who remembers God while working in the fields walks the same spiritual path as the scholar who studies sacred texts. God dwells equally in all hearts that welcome the divine with love. When people gather to sing devotional songs and share stories of God, differences of birth and social rank disappear. Rich and poor sit together, sharing the same joy and peace. In these sacred gatherings, only the purity of devotion matters. The saints who walked this path of love taught that true religion lies not in complex ceremonies, but in simple surrender to God. They showed that anyone can reach the highest spiritual state through sincere devotion. No priestly class can block this direct connection between the devotee and the divine. These holy teachers spoke in the common language of the people. They composed songs and poems that touched ordinary hearts. Their message spread like light in darkness, reaching those who had been told they were too low to approach God directly. Through pure love and devotion, the divine transforms the human heart. This transformation brings natural compassion for all living beings. When you truly love God, you cannot help but love God's creation. Cruelty toward others becomes impossible for the true devotee. The path of devotion teaches that the same divine spirit lives in every creature. This understanding makes all beings worthy of respect and kindness. Social divisions based on birth become meaningless when you see the same God in all. Those who follow this path of love develop genuine humility. They see themselves as servants of all creation. This humble service to others becomes their worship of the divine. In helping others, they serve God directly. This teaching of universal love through devotion opened spiritual doors that had been closed to many. It declared that the highest spiritual attainment belongs not to a chosen few, but to all who approach God with sincere hearts filled with love. Part 2. Dayananda Sarasvati and Return to Eternal Law. When society becomes corrupt and people forget true righteousness, reformers arise to restore proper moral order. In the 19th century, Swami Dayananda Sarasvati emerged as such a reformer. He saw that Hindu society had moved far from its original pure teachings. Social practices had become rigid and unjust. People followed empty rituals instead of true spiritual principles. Dayananda taught that Dharma is eternal and universal. He called this Sanatana Dharma, meaning the everlasting law that applies to all people in all times. This law comes from God and never changes based on human opinion or social convenience. Truth remains truth whether people accept it or reject it. He rejected the idea that morality depends on social position or birth circumstances. The eternal law applies equally to all human beings. A person's worth comes from their character and actions, not from the family they were born into. God judges people by their righteousness, not by their caste or social status. The reformer looked to the Vedas as the source of this eternal truth. He taught that these ancient texts contain universal principles of right living. Social customs that contradicted these principles should be abandoned. Many practices that people called Hindu traditions were actually corruptions that developed over time. Dayananda challenged the caste system as it existed in his day. He argued that the Vedas teach equality of all souls before God. Social divisions based on birth violate this fundamental truth. People should be valued for their knowledge, character, and service to society, not for their ancestry. He established the Arya Samaj to spread these teachings. This organization promoted education for all, including women who had been denied learning. They worked to eliminate child marriage, promote widow remarriage, and end other social injustices. These reforms were based on returning to eternal moral principles, not adopting foreign ideas. The Swami taught that true religion is universal in its moral demands. All genuine faiths teach similar ethical principles because these principles reflect divine law: honesty, Compassion. Justice and truthfulness are required everywhere because they match the nature of ultimate reality. His message was clear. Hindu Dharma is not relative to time, place, or social condition. The moral law is fixed and eternal. Human societies may interpret this law poorly or ignore it completely, but the law itself never changes. People must align their lives and societies with this eternal standard. This teaching directly opposed those who claimed that moral rules depend entirely on social agreement. Dayananda insisted that some principles are absolutely right and others absolutely wrong. Justice is always better than injustice. Truth is always superior to falsehood. These distinctions exist independently of human preference. Part 3. Gandhi and the Politics of Nonviolence. Gandhi lived his whole life believing that the highest truths from Hindu teachings should guide all human action. He found in the ancient texts two principles that became the center of his work: ahimsa and satyagraha. Ahimsa means not harming any living being. This goes beyond simply avoiding murder or violence. True ahimsa means removing all hatred, anger, and ill will from the heart. Gandhi said that ahimsa is the highest duty of every person. It applies to thoughts, words, and actions. When someone practices perfect ahimsa, they become fearless and pure. This purity gives them great power to change the world. Satyagraha means holding firm to truth. Truth for Gandhi was not just speaking facts correctly. Truth was the very nature of God and reality itself. When people align themselves completely with truth, they become instruments of divine will. They can resist injustice without violence. They can transform enemies into friends. They can change entire societies through moral force alone. Gandhi took these eternal principles and applied them to the political struggles of his time. In South Africa, he organized Indians to resist unfair laws through peaceful methods. They refused to obey unjust rules. They accepted punishment without fighting back. They showed love even to those who persecuted them. This approach confused and eventually defeated those who oppressed them. When Gandhi returned to India, he used the same methods against British rule. He taught millions of Indians to resist foreign control through non-cooperation. They would not buy British goods. They would not serve in British institutions. They would not follow laws that violated their dignity. But they would never use violence or hatred. They would suffer willingly for the cause of truth. The British government had armies, police, and weapons. Gandhi had only moral force, yet his movement proved stronger. When authorities beat peaceful protesters, the world watched in horror. When they imprisoned Gandhi and his followers, millions more joined the struggle. The British found that they could not govern people who refused to cooperate and would not fight back. Gandhi showed that the moral principles taught in Hindu scriptures were not meant only for personal spiritual growth. These same principles could transform politics, economics, and society. Ahimsa and satyagraha were not weak or passive. They were the strongest forces available to human beings. They could defeat any opponent because they appealed to the divine spark present in every heart. The success of Gandhi's methods proved that certain moral truths work everywhere among all people. Nonviolence and commitment to truth are not merely Indian values. They are universal principles that can guide any society seeking justice and peace. Gandhi demonstrated that ancient wisdom remains fully relevant to modern challenges. Part 4. Political Independence, Morality in Modern Governance. The ancient texts spoke of Raja Dharma, the righteous duty of rulers. A king must protect the weak, uphold truth, and serve the welfare of all people. These teachings guided those who fought for India's freedom from colonial rule. The independence movement drew heavily from Hindu concepts of Dharma. Leaders saw British rule as adharmic, against the natural order of justice. They believed that true governance must flow from moral principles, not mere power or profit. The fight for freedom became a fight for righteous rule. Dharma demanded that government serve the people's highest good. This meant protecting the poor, ensuring justice for all castes and communities, and ruling according to truth rather than personal gain. The freedom fighters saw political independence as inseparable from moral independence. When India gained freedom in 1947, the new nation faced difficult questions. How could ancient Hindu principles of righteousness guide a modern secular state? The constitution makers tried to balance traditional dharmic values with modern democratic ideals. The concept of Sarva Dharma Sambhava, equal respect for all faiths, became central to India's secular framework. This drew from Hindu teachings that truth appears in many forms. Yet tensions emerged between this inclusive vision and those who wanted Hindu values to dominate public life. Modern India struggles with these competing demands. Traditional morality emphasizes duty based on one's birth and social position. Democratic ethics emphasize individual rights and equality before the law. Sometimes these principles conflict directly. The legal system attempts to balance both approaches. Laws protect individual freedoms while also respecting community traditions. Courts reference both constitutional principles and dharmic concepts when making decisions about family law, religious practices, and social justice. Political parties often invoke dharma to justify their positions. Some claim that true Hindu governance requires specific policies favoring Hindu traditions. Others argue that dharmic principles demand equal treatment of all citizens regardless of faith. The ongoing debate reflects deeper questions about morality itself. Can ancient teachings provide guidance for modern challenges like corruption, inequality, and communal tensions? Or must contemporary ethics replace traditional frameworks entirely? Many leaders continue to find wisdom in dharmic principles. They argue that concepts like truth, nonviolence, lead, and service to others remain relevant across all historical periods. Good governance still requires moral character in leaders and just policies that protect the vulnerable. Yet others worry that mixing religious concepts with secular governance threatens minority rights and democratic institutions. They prefer purely rational, rights-based approaches to public policy and law. This tension between traditional dharmic values and modern secular ethics continues to shape Indian society. The resolution of these debates will determine how successfully India can maintain both its cultural heritage and its commitment to democratic equality. Chapter 4: Resolving Universalism and Relativity. Part 1: Philosophical Debates, Universal versus Relative Ethics. The wise ones of ancient times asked this great question: are the laws of right and wrong the same for all people everywhere? Or do they change based on time, place, and person? This question has been discussed by learned teachers for thousands of years. The followers of Vedanta say that truth is one and eternal. They teach that the highest moral law comes from the divine nature itself. This law does not change with time or place. Just as fire always burns and water always flows downward, Dharma has certain fixed rules that apply to all beings. The soul is the same in all creatures, so the basic duties toward all souls remain constant. Love, truth, and nonviolence are eternal principles that bind every person. But the teachers of Mimamsa look at this differently. They say that Dharma must be practiced in the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. The sacred texts give us different rules for different people at different times. A king's duty differs from a priest's duty. What is right for a householder may not be right for a monk. The circumstances of birth, stage of life, and social position all shape what Dharma requires from each person. The scholars of Nyaya seek to understand this through careful reasoning. They examine each situation to find what brings the greatest good and least harm. They say that moral rules must be tested through logic and experience. What works in one place may fail in another. What helps society in times of peace may harm it in times of war. Therefore, wise people must think carefully about each choice they make. These three schools do not fight with each other. Instead, they work together like three rivers flowing toward the same ocean. Each school sees one part of the complete truth about Dharma. The eternal principles give us the foundation. We must not harm innocent beings. We must speak truth. We must help those who suffer. These rules never change because they come from the divine nature itself. But the way we follow these principles must change based on our situation. A doctor may cause pain to heal a patient. A judge may punish someone to protect society. A parent may speak firmly to guide a child. The eternal principle of compassion stays the same, but it shows itself differently in different circumstances. This is why the ancient teachers said that Dharma is both universal and particular. It is universal because all beings share the same divine essence. It is particular because each person must walk their own path toward that divine truth. Part 2. Dharma in Contemporary Society. Dharma in Contemporary Society. Today, people everywhere try to live by Dharma in their daily lives. The old teachings help guide new choices. In homes, at work, in caring for nature, and as citizens of the world, Dharma shows the right way forward. In family life, Dharma teaches us our duties to parents, children, and partners. A parent must provide for their child's needs and teach them good values. A child must respect their parents and care for them when they grow old. A wife and husband must support each other through good times and bad. These duties remain the same today as they were thousands of years ago. But modern families face new challenges. Women now work outside the home. Children move far away for education and jobs. Elderly parents may live alone. The duty to care remains, but we must find new ways to fulfill it. A son who lives in another country can still honor his parents by calling them regularly and sending money for their needs. A working mother can still teach her children good values by spending quality time with them and setting a good example. In business, Dharma calls for honesty, fairness, and concern for others. A merchant should not cheat customers by selling bad goods at high prices. An employer should pay workers fairly and treat them with respect. A company should make products that help people, not harm them. Modern business brings new moral questions. Should a company move its factory to another country to pay workers less? Should a business sell products that damage the environment? Should a banker make loans to people who cannot afford to pay them back? Dharma says we must consider not just profit, but the good of all people. Environmental care has become urgent in our time. The old texts teach that all creation is sacred. Every tree, river, and mountain contains divine presence. We are meant to be guardians of nature, not destroyers. Yet modern life often harms the natural world. People today must choose between convenience and environmental protection. Should we drive cars that pollute the air, or walk and use public transport? Should we buy products wrapped in plastic, or choose items with less packaging? Should companies drill for oil in pristine forests or invest in clean energy instead? Dharma calls us to protect the earth for future generations. As global citizens, we face moral duties toward people in distant lands. When disasters strike other countries, should we send help? When governments treat their people badly, should other nations intervene? When poor countries cannot feed their people, should wealthy nations share their resources? The ancient teaching that all souls are one divine essence means we have duties beyond our own families and communities. We must care for human suffering wherever it occurs. We must work for justice and peace throughout the world. Modern society is complex, with many different beliefs and values existing together. People from various traditions must live and work side by side. This creates both opportunities and challenges for following Dharma. In pluralistic societies, we must respect others while staying true to our own principles. We cannot force our beliefs on others, but we can live by example. We can work together with people of different faiths to solve common problems like poverty, disease, and environmental destruction. Part 3. The role of culture and individual judgment. Culture shapes how we understand and practice Dharma. Different communities may follow the same basic principles but express them in unique ways. A merchant in the market follows Dharma differently than a teacher in the classroom or a farmer in the fields. Each person's background, family traditions, and social position influence how they interpret moral duties. The sacred texts tell us that Dharma changes according to time, place, and circumstances. What is right for one person may not be right for another. This does not mean anything goes, but rather that wisdom requires careful thought about each situation. A mother's Dharma differs from a child's Dharma. A leader's duties are not the same as a follower's duties. Personal discernment, called viveka, helps us make good moral choices. This inner wisdom comes from study, prayer, and life experience. We must examine our motives, consider the results of our actions, and think about how they affect others. The wise person looks beyond their own desires to see what truly serves the greater good. When making moral decisions, we must consider several things. First, what are the circumstances? The same action might be right in one situation and wrong in another. Second, what is our intention? Actions done with pure motives carry different weight than those done from selfish desire. Third, how will our choices affect our family, community, and society? The ancient wisdom teaches us that different paths can lead to the same destination. People may follow different customs and practices while still following Dharma. A person who grows up in the mountains may have different traditions than someone from the river valley. Both can live righteously according to their own ways. This flexibility does not mean we abandon all standards. Basic principles like truthfulness, nonviolence, and compassion remain constant. But how we apply these principles must be thoughtful and appropriate to our situation. The parent who protects their child shows different compassion than the judge who upholds justice. In our modern world, people from many different backgrounds live together. We must respect this diversity while maintaining our own moral foundation. We cannot judge others harshly for following different customs, especially when their actions come from sincere devotion and cause no harm. The wise person learns from many sources. They study the scriptures, listen to elders, observe the natural world, and reflect on their own experiences. They remain humble, knowing that moral understanding grows throughout life. They seek guidance from teachers and holy persons, but ultimately must use their own judgment to choose the right path. This approach recognizes that human society is complex and ever-changing. What worked for our ancestors may need adjustment for our time. Yet the fundamental goal remains the same: to live in harmony with divine law while serving the welfare of all beings. Part 4. Ongoing reforms and global perspectives. The scriptures teach us that Dharma must grow and change with the times. Just as a tree bends in the wind but keeps its roots strong, moral teachings must adapt to new conditions while holding firm to their basic truths. The ancient texts remind us that righteous living serves all beings, and this service takes new forms in each age. In our time, the learned ones work to understand how ancient wisdom applies to modern challenges. When women seek equal treatment in society, we return to the Vedas, which honor the divine feminine principle. The texts speak of Shakti, the sacred power that moves through all creation. They tell us that without honoring women, no family or society can truly prosper. The wise know that restricting any person based on birth or gender goes against the fundamental teaching that the same divine spirit lives in all beings. The scriptures also guide us in caring for the earth. The Vedas declare that the earth is our mother, and we are her children. They teach that all elements, water, air, fire, earth, and space, are sacred. When we pollute the rivers or destroy the forests, we harm the very body of the divine. The ancient rishis lived simply and took only what they needed from nature. This wisdom becomes more urgent as our modern world faces great environmental dangers. Human dignity forms another pillar of Dharmic teaching. The Upanishads proclaim that the same eternal soul dwells in all beings. This truth means that every person deserves basic respect and care, regardless of their background or beliefs. The concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam teaches us that the whole world is one family. This ancient ideal now guides many who work for justice and human rights across the globe. Hindu moral philosophy offers valuable gifts to world discussions about right living. It teaches that multiple paths can lead to the same truth. It shows how unchanging principles can be applied in flexible ways. It demonstrates how individual conscience and community wisdom can work together. It reveals how spiritual growth and social responsibility support each other. The Dharmic approach does not claim to have all the answers. Instead, it provides a way of thinking that honors both eternal values and changing circumstances. It teaches patience, compassion, and the willingness to learn from others. It reminds us that moral development is a lifelong journey, not a destination we reach once and then forget. As the world becomes more connected, these ancient teachings help us find common ground while respecting our differences. They show us how to be both rooted in our traditions and open to growth.